Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani. Good to have you here with me this morning. It's Monday. Hope you had an amazing weekend. Hope you had some time to connect with family and friends. We're going to dive back into our conversation that we started on last week. We were talking about why are we still here? We're going to do part 2 of that because I wanted you to take some time to have a conversation with your spouse to really begin to unpack the why. There's a book that's entitled Starting with Why, or Start with Why. Because once you have a why for something, it gives you clarity, focus, and direction. And so we're going to dive into that today. Before we get started, make sure you take the time to like, share, and subscribe. Let the world know that we are here this morning to be able to connect with you. Also, as you know, October 7th, we're excited about it because we have the Phoenix Award Gala. That's right. It's going to be starting at 7 p.m. to 12 a.m. Listen, I don't care where you are from around the world. You want to get your tickets. I don't care if you have to drive or fly or boat, or if you got to hike, if you got to hitchhike, get there. You want to be in the building because it's going to be a memorable occasion that really can make an indelible mark in your marriage. You think about this marital timeline, right? So we've all been in this committed relationship for some period of time. And so the marital timeline, or the relationship timeline, is where we can point to things that represent highs and then other things that represent lows. So if you find yourself in a valley right now, in a low place, you want to be able to be here because it will help to propel you back into a high place. If you are on a high, you want to maintain it and make sure that this is one of those memorable occasions that you can point to in your marriage, those high peaks that you can celebrate and really leave a stamp on your life. And that's what we're here about, celebrating kingdom marriage. And so there's going to be a lot to look forward to. So get your tickets. Just go to the website. There should be a link in the description. Go to the events page. The tickets are flying off the shelf, and I don't want you to be missing out, okay? It's just that simple. Also, last chance weekend is coming up, second weekend of September. We're excited about it. Couples are filling out registrations for that, so we want you to engage in that. Maybe you are in that space of uncertainty. You don't know what to do. Well, you need to get help, and we are the place where you can get that help. All right, so let's dive into today's conversation. I asked you all to have a conversation with your spouse. Some of you did, and you got tremendous insights from it. Some of you are still scared. You are still tiptoeing, tap dancing, pussyfooting around the issue, and you wonder why there's no breakthrough in your life. I cannot tell you how many people come to me and say, how should I approach, and what exactly should I say, and I don't know what to do, and the last time I tried, and if I do this, and what if this happens, and I don't want to poke the bear, and I don't want to rattle the boat, or rock the boat. And I'm like, listen, the only way to get to a place of breakthrough is by confronting it head on. You can't be indirect. You can't go around the barnyard. You have to directly confront it. Because I'm going to tell you something. One thing that your spouse probably does not respect is fear. They probably do not respect that. When you tiptoe and tap dance and you're indirect, it can wind up being a turnoff. Even though the response may not be what you want, at least they respect the fact that you came to them directly. You know, it's interesting when dealing with infidelity, one of the reasons why many people seek out in others what they're not getting from their spouse is because they choose not to speak out. Did you hear that? We seek out because we refuse to speak out. And so if there are issues that we're having in the relationship and we suppress it and we justify why we don't bring it up, what happens is when we don't speak out, we suppress it, right? And so we will wind up seeking out connection, seeking out understanding, seeking out affection, seeking out attention in other places when everything that we were looking for was really in our own backyard, but we weren't willing to do the work. So we decided to emotionally and verbally and physically disconnect from our partner, our source, to pursue and seek someone else. And so that is the same pattern, the same mistake that we keep making on the other side outside of the discovery of the affair. See, at the end of the day, there's going to have to take a lot of work on your part, a lot of effort on your part to get to a better place. But the one skill that you have to develop is the skill of what? Communication, effective communication, because that is what leads to the breakthrough. And so it's so important not only to have conversations with your spouse, but to have genuine, authentic, real, and raw conversations with yourself. Why am I here? Because when I ask that question, oftentimes I hear, I don't know. I just don't know. There's a couple that is waiting for me to end this show so we can dive into a private marriage intensive. And I'm going to ask the question, why are you here? And if they don't know, then the first thing we have to do is start with the why, getting that certainty. Because if you don't know, see, I hear this all the time. I love you, but I hate you. I love you, but I just can't stand you. I don't like you. So when I ask the question, well, why is it that you love them? They struggle. They vacillate. They really have a hard time articulating what they love about their spouse. But when I ask the question, so why do you hate your spouse? Why are you disgusted by your spouse? Why don't you like your spouse? I got to keep them from talking. Because once they get started, it's hard for them to stop, because they've got an incalculable number of things that they can point to that really focus on the disgust, the disdain, and the contempt that they have for their spouse. And so the question then becomes this, well, why are you here? Why are we doing this? Why? Why are you still together? I don't know. And that's what we want to get to. You understanding that why. Because when you begin to understand the why, things begin to shift for you. So this is not about your spouse. See, a lot of times you want to project, right? You don't want to articulate. You don't want to take the bold step. You don't want to be introspective. You want to know why your spouse is here. Because what your spouse says then determines what you say. Or what your spouse thinks determines what you think. How your spouse responds determines how you respond. And so that's an example of someone who's living a life who's very reactive and responsive and isn't anchored in one's own belief, conviction, value system, positioning. And so it's easy to sway to the left, to the right. It's easy to be tossed to and fro like a leaf blown by the wind, because you aren't anchored in anything. When you are anchored in your reasoning, when you are anchored in your why, regardless of how your spouse shows up, regardless of what they say, regardless of what they do, you are unmovable. See, I was once in that place where she did not want it. She did not want to stay. She did not care. She was emotionally disconnected. It was over. And if I continued to focus on the facts, it would have been. But in the midst of her disgust and frustration, like I wasn't, I was. But I was the one in that season willing to do whatever it took to make sure that we stayed together. We weren't in a happy place. We weren't talking. We weren't communicating. We were just raising babies. We were just paying bills, and we were fighting most of the time. But I made sure that in the midst of it all, we stood together. And I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to turn it around, but I knew that eventually there will be a breakthrough. And when I began to seek help outside of myself, when I began to call upon my Creator, truly, relationship, not religion. See, because some of us are crisis Christians. When we get into crisis, that's when we get right. When we get into crisis, that's when we do right. When we get into crisis, that's when we pray, and that's when we read the word, and that's when we fast, and we do all of these things to prove to God how sincere we are, because we're in a season of desperation and we don't know what to do. And God, if you only do this one thing, if you do this one, all the promises, all the vows, all the declarations we make, when we are in the midst of our pain, and the moment we get back what we felt we lost, the moment the coast is clear, the moment we seem to be in a better place, all that conviction, all those vows and declarations and promises we made to God are thrown away. So it wasn't truly sincere. There was an agenda, there was an objective to keep the marriage in place. And so the question is, for those of you who are fighting tooth and nail to keep this marriage together, why? Like, if you were the unfaithful one, and you were disconnected and you were distraught and you were frustrated and you had all this anger pent up, and it caused you to go down another path and connect with another person, and now you get exposed. Why do you want the marriage? Why? What are you holding on to? See, I want you to think for yourself, to come up with that reason. Because the reason that you want it may not be and should not be, interestingly enough, the reason why your spouse wants it. Because you're on two different sides of this offense. And so your experience with each other in this relational dynamic is completely different. And initially, you should want this marriage for different reasons. And then eventually you find alignment and oneness for the reason. But what is your reason? We're going to talk about what some of those reasons may be, or some of the things that have caused the disconnect in the first place on the other side of this break. You're watching a Couples Academy show. Hope you're getting something out of this conversation. Be right back.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, guys, we're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about the topic, why are we still together? And I think it's an important conversation to have. I want to talk about this whole I love you, but I hate you. Remember Prince wrote that song? I'm not even going to try to sing it because, wouldn't be the move. But he wrote a song talking about how I love you, yet I hate you. And then I thought about that classic back in the day. Remember Martin Lawrence and Lynn Winfield? They starred in this movie called A Thin Line Between Love and Hate. In fact, there was a song. It's a thin line between love and hate. Remember that? Remember that song? And that movie came out, and it was a comedic movie. And but this whole idea of loving someone and hating someone all at the same time is a very real thing. I remember years ago I was counseling a woman who we were doing grief counseling. She lost her husband, and I remember she came to me one day really distraught and all over the place because she was feeling certain feelings that she was embarrassed about. And I said, "Tell me, what are you feeling?" She said, "My husband died, and I don't know why, but I just feel happy and I just don't understand this feeling. And I'm like, happy? Tell me more about it. And she said, well, I'm sad and sickened and lonely and depressed by the fact that he's no longer here because he was the love of my life, but I'm happy at the same time because he's no longer in pain. And I said, okay, well, see, that I get that. That makes sense. And so your emotion or your feeling, when you isolate it and don't attach it to anything, it may not make sense. But when you attach it to the reasoning, I understand. So it's possible that you can have two polar opposite emotions, feelings, all within the same casing. They're diametrically opposed to each other, and it's confusing. Likewise, a person who can love you but also hate you, and hate may be a strong word, let's just say are disgusted and frustrated and don't like whatever that emotion is, whatever that feeling is, whatever that word is, it's possible that both can operate in that space. Now, just a couple of days ago, Danielle and I are on a podcast, we're being interviewed, and the topic is about love. And so they asked the question, and they said, does love hurt? And you know, when you hear a statement like that, you don't know what angle or what perspective a person comes from. You don't know what their filter is, you know, what their agenda with that question is. And so my answer was, no, love doesn't hurt. Love within itself, when we understand what love is, if we're dealing with eros love and if we're dealing with phileo love and agape love, love within itself does not hurt. Now, you have broken people and hurt people who have feelings of love. Like I could love you and be hurt by you. I could love you and do hurtful things, but the actions that I'm demonstrating aren't actions of love. The pain that you've caused me, they weren't loving behaviors, if you will, that led to my pain. And I think that many people have done many horrific things in the name of love, but it wasn't truly love. And so when you say you love your spouse, I believe that you do, but my question is, what love are you demonstrating? Because as bad as things are right now, because many of you watching right now, you're hurting. I've been having conversations with some of you one-on-one. I've been reading emails that you send me. I've been getting the text. You are in a hurtful place. You're hurting. And I want to let you know that that does not have to be a permanent season that you remain in, that you can shift out of your hurt and out of your pain, but it requires intentionality on your part and on the part of your spouse. You don't have to be here. So you don't have to wonder, why am I still here? You will have clarity, which will ultimately lead to certainty. But the question is the love. What are you operating in? Is there more contempt in your relationship, disdain in your relationship right now, or more love? Because when we read love, one thing about love, love is patient. Are you operating in a space of patience with your spouse? Right? Is there space? Is there patience? Love is kind. How kind are you being in this relationship, though you claim you love your spouse? It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. Your rage, your anger, you pop off, right? You go from 0 to 100 real quick. All it takes is a look. All it takes is a statement, and the conversations goes left. You say that you have love, but are you demonstrating it in your marriage? It keeps no records of. Now, wait a minute. That's the one thing that we struggle to do. We keep records. Oh, yes. We keep journals, right? And notebooks, and we tally things up, and we keep score, and we remember the day, the time. We remember everything. And that's the thing. If you keep records of your spouse's wrong, it will keep you attached to that wrong. And if you're attached to the wrong, then it's hard to ever get right. It's hard for us as a couple to ever get right, because the wrong remains a permanent fixture in my mind, and I can't let it go, and I can't forgive, and I can't see. And that's what happens. I'm stupid if I just forgive. I'm betraying myself if I don't think about it anymore. So I gotta think about it. And so all of my focus and all of my attention and all of my energies are going towards that one thing. What you did that was wrong, because I'm keeping record, and I'm never going to, not only will I not forget, I'm never going to let you forget. So now I wave that banner of guilt and shame over your head every single day, never letting you up, never giving up on the fact that you caused what's happening currently in my life. You are the reason for this disaster. You are the reason why we are where we are. How in the world could you ever get to a place of genuine love, freedom, deliverance, if you're stuck in that space? So love does not keep records of wrong. It doesn't ignore what happened. It doesn't forget about what happened. The Bible doesn't tell us that we should forget about what happened, because if you forget your history, potentially you're bound to repeat it again. But it's the relationship that you have with that history. You understand? You got to get to a place where, and this does happen for a lot of couples, it's not about what you did to me or what I did to you, but what we experience in our marriage. You see the difference? Just the language alone has a different energy, a different posture, a different positioning. But for those of you right now, and I wanted to pause here because this is where you find yourself, you can't get past the grievance. You are trapped by these bad memories of the past. You are haunted by these ghosts of your relational past, the things that were done, the deeds. And what happens is you're holding on to the records because you got the receipts and you constantly review it, right? You're looking at the emails that were sent. You're reading the text messages. You're watching the videos. You're looking at the pictures, right? You have all of these reminders about the incident, about the betrayal, about that experience that you have yet to recover from, and you remain anchored in it. So you're constantly triggered all the time, and then you anchor yourself back into it, which creates more trigger. So you go from triggers to anchors, from triggers to, so when I'm triggered, it's almost like I'm floating in space. I have nothing to hold on to. And then when I do find something to hold on to, I'm holding on and anchored into the very pain that just caused the trigger. And it's a sick cycle that we remain in. There's a pattern that we've remained in. And as a result of that, we remain stuck. Right? So it keeps no records of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Now, what you did to me was evil. And now, internally, that same feeling I have towards you, I've seen it. I've seen where the betrayed spouse sees the pain and the hardship and the rough time that the former unfaithful spouse is going through, and secretly they're enjoying it because this is exactly what you deserve. You did this. So you're just reaping a harvest of what you've done. And so though there are laws that we cannot escape from, sowing and reaping, without a shadow of a doubt, when you secretly take pleasure and joy in other people's pain, that's a hard place. That's a hardening of the heart that you have. And when your heart is hardened, even the scripture says, that's what oftentimes leads to the divorce. But you don't want a divorce. You want to stay. You just don't know why. Maybe you're here because you want to torture your spouse. Maybe you're here because you want them to continue to feel the pain, and leaving them would be easy. So you've made it your mission. Oh, you're going to get it. And I'm going to ensure that you feel it, and you will feel my wrath. And if I'm going to hurt, you going to hurt. We're going to hurt together. You're committed to that. You're more committed to that than breakthrough, healing, and transformation. So maybe the reason why we're together is retribution. You've got to search your heart. You've got to dig deep within yourself. You've got to be unearthed. You've got to go through a foundry experience. You know, one thing about the foundry, that is where they take metal and they place it in fire and it's melted and they can reshape it into anything that they so choose. There needs to be a purification process that happens within you while you are in your wilderness space within this relationship if you're truly going to experience healing and breakthrough. And it can't be something you do on your own, by yourself, using your own intellect, using your own means, because whatever you think is the right thing to do when you're in a hurtful, broken state, nine times out of 10 is the absolute worst thing to do. It's quiet on the set. Not many comments today because you know I'm talking to you. I'm stepping on your toes right now. I'm hitting you where you're at. I done hit your doorstep because this is what's really going on behind closed doors. We come out of those doors and we're smiling as if everything's all right. We're showing up to church, praise the Lord, how you doing? And then when we get back in the car, we're miserable and not talking or fighting. This is the space that we're in. And we've made a commitment to be in this. For what? As I've said before, we believe in divorce. I had to divorce me from myself. And when I made the decision to divorce me from myself, everything began to turn around. So this is what love is. Love always protects. Love always trusts. Love always hopes. Love always perseveres. Love never fails. So if you're in a relationship that's failing, the question is, are you truly operating in love? So when you say you love your spouse, and that's the reason why you can't leave, have you tapped into this? Is this the love that you're operating in? What is the love? It's certainly not Eros love. Because Eros love is that high, erotic, sensual, passionate, in love feeling that you have for someone. You're not in that space. So if you're not operating in agape love and you're not operating in Eros love, what's the love that you claim you have? How are you demonstrating it? How is it showing up in your life? What is you're bearing that you love? This phileo love, this caring for you type. Yeah, I care for you. Do you? Is anything you're doing in this season of your life demonstrating care? Are you willing to go beyond your comfort zone? Are you willing to do what's uncomfortable? Are you willing to do what doesn't even make sense to you, though you're given instruction to do things that will take you to a better place? Are you willing to get unstuck? Are you demonstrating care for someone else? Are you being selfless? What are you doing? Well, I cook, I clean, I make sure. Yeah, I understand that, right? So there's certain duties and responsibilities that all of us have as partners in this thing called marriage. Right? So at a minimum, we show up in particular ways because we have to. But I'm not talking about your role of a partner in the marriage. I'm talking about companionship. Are you willing to do the things that are uncomfortable? Are you willing to do the things that your heart and your mind is telling you not to do, but you're willing to do it anyway because you want to get to a better place? That's what I'm talking about. Are you willing to have the conversations? Are you willing to be comfortable with being uncomfortable? Are you willing to do those things? Are you demonstrating that type of love? If not, then what is the love? I'm in this because I still love you. But how? What does that look like? Here's a conversation that you need to have with yourself to assess where you are, because you are the lowest common denominator in this relationship. And rather than waiting for change to take place in your partner, rather than waiting for something to fall out of the sky, rather than waiting for your situations and circumstances to change on its own, what are you going to do? How are you going to be? Not the thermometer, but the thermostat. Remember that? We were talking about that? The thermometer tests the temperature. It measures the temperature in the room. The thermostat creates the temperature. So what are you doing to help create the temperature, to shift the environment, the atmosphere in your household that will make a difference in your life and marriage? Why are we still here? I'm not letting go on this. We're going to dig a little bit deeper on this until we experience breakthrough. I know I'm having a one-way conversation with you, but I know I'm all up in your head. I'm all up in your thoughts, and I want you to marinate and soak and saturate in what I'm saying. I want it to haunt you. I want it to trap you. I want it to pin you up in the corner until you're forced to really go deep dive and identify your why. Identify the reason we're still together. Because if you're committed to being together, why choose to be miserable? Wouldn't it make sense to make the choice to be happy and fulfilled, to have a mutual beneficial relationship where we both can win, where our needs can both be met, where we can have a genuine joy with each other. Isn't that what we ultimately want? Or do you want to remain in a miserable trap, prison pit called marriage, so that you can have a story and narrative of a victim's mentality that you could tell everybody else so that they can continue to feel bad about you? Is that the life that you want to live? If not, then let's do something about it. Listen, guys, that's the end of our show. I hope you got something out of it. Certain conversations are going to be hard conversations. They're not going to feel good. You may be triggered watching this, but guess what? God saw fit that you tuned in today. Maybe you're watching for the first time. You don't know anything about us. But what we're saying is speaking directly to you. You need to tune in tomorrow. You need to go to the website, couplesacademy.org. You need to set up a discovery call. You need to figure out how we can engage in a journey with you to take you to the other side. Because right now you are living in hell. And it is not a good place to be. And listen, I'm addicted to pain. That's the one thing. People ask me, are you allergic? Not addicted, I'm sorry. I'm allergic to pain. People say all the time, are you allergic to anything? Yeah, pain. I don't like it. But some of you are addicted to it, right? You have anchored yourself in it and you enjoy it. I have an aversion to it. And I want to do everything I can to get out of it. And whatever I have to do, whatever we have to do, let's do what's necessary to get out of the pit of this pain. Folks, you're watching the Couples Academy show. I'll see you in the morning as we continue. But until then, be well. Take care.